Approve the transfer of the fire tax collection fees to a special fund to assist fire departments. Appropriate $625,000 to Triangle Land Conservancy. Appropriate an additional $50,000 for the Johnston County Regional Airport grant matches. If you'll note, there's $200,000 that was included in the manager's proposed budget. Appropriate an additional $158,339 to Johnston County Area Transportation System, or JCATS. Appropriate a total of $722,000 to the Public Library of Johnston County. Appropriate a total of $50,000 for the Partnership for Children of Johnston County. Appropriate a total of $325,000 for Harbor. There was $75,000 in the manager's proposed budget, and the $250,000 difference would be a proposed one-time amount. Appropriate $15,000 to Special Olympics. Appropriate $28,000 to the Smithfield Rescue Mission. Approve the recommendation of the Moccasin Creek Service District Board for the district property tax increase of 1.5 cents for a total of 3 cents per $100 valuation. Approve the fire district tax rate increases as recommended by the Fire Tax Committee and the fire departments as follows. West Johnston from 7 cents to 9 cents. From Bentonville from 8 cents to a 12-cent rate. Wynn or Four Oaks would be 8 to a 10.5 cents. And then Strickland's Crossroads from 10 cents per 100 to 12 cents. Increase the ad valorem revenue by $3 million. Sales tax revenue by $2 million, and appropriate $2,806,215 from reserves for a total adopted a budget amount of $309,059,934. And Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the board members for all their contribution. It was truly a group effort, and I appreciate their dedication and willingness to try to produce a budget that would really benefit the citizens of Johnston County. I think we've done that.
It was in the form of a motion, so I do hear a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. It's time for discussion. And if you don't mind, I'll start here and we'll address it.
I have no comment.
No comments. Commissioner Stevens, any comments?
No, sir.
Commissioner Brazel?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think, as it always is in budget preparation, it takes a deal of compromise and hard work and to come to where we're at. Certainly, you know, with all that we have in this county, I appreciate the board that would vote for this budget. I think we've done a great job this year, and I think Vice Chairman Harris did a great job. I think we all worked together. We all started with a different number, and 15 phone calls later, I guess we're back together. But anyway, and it's a good budget again. There's some things that I would like to have done different, but hey, and but we all came together and compromised.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Mr. Gollin?
Just as a, for clarity's sake, Mr. Chairman, the fifth bullet point in the motion had to do with the fire tax collection fees. That's within the framework and the context of a group that met between 3 of us commissioners and representatives from all of the chiefs in the county. And within that framework, this money is intended to help those low wealth departments. It's not just throwing it out there, but it's got specific uses. I just want to clarify that. Other than that, I don't have any other. I do commend Commissioner Harris for his hard work. I told him on the phone the other day, over the weekend, I'm sure he was working on it when I was doing other things, but I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I too would like to say that I appreciate the work that Commissioner Harris did, and it's a learning experience for me. And I'm like Commissioner Brazel, I had a few different numbers, but we compromised and came together, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you.
All right, and I would just, I guess I would say that the first item you read was related to our public school system, and based on some conversations I've had with their chair, Todd Sutton, It appears that there may be some preliminary scores that indicate that multiple schools have moved up a grade level. We'll wait to get official confirmation of that, but I think that that's what this board and I think the people of Johnston County want to see, is that we're investing as well as getting results. So we look forward to getting that information. And then the final thing I would say is, when we met a couple months ago in our strategic planning retreat, the thing that we talked about was being good financial stewards of the money of the folks in Johnston County. And I think that's probably what this, well, I don't think probably, that this board, that was at the forefront as at all of our minds as we made the decision. And as Commissioner Braswell said, we all had pieces and parts that we probably would have liked to seen turn out different, but we all came together. And again, thanks to Vice Chairman Harris for his work in getting that done. So with that, motion second and discussion.
One other
Yes.
thing, is this time, should this be mentioned about it wasn't mentioned during public comment about comments from the public about our budget. We had seen it earlier, I think.
I didn't have anything. Is it from Ms. Casanave? Is that who?
It's from Lieutenant Commander Peters.
Okay. So we did have a couple of comments from at least two citizens, Jean, I think, Casanave, and Shannon Peterson. So we did have some
Yeah, and
comments.
they weighed in with some thumbs up, some thumbs down.
Okay.
Sort of like us.
Yes. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the 22-23 budget, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Budget's carried. Let me ask Ms. Stevens, was that a delay or did you vote in the negative?
No, I agree.
Okay, so you voted for. Okay, there was a little delay there. Just wanted to make sure. That delay we talked about earlier, about the 2-second delay, that worked out pretty entertaining. So, all right, just clarify that. So the vote was unanimous. So, all right. All right, next up, we have the Triangle Land Partners, LLC, and Floyd Landing Holdings, LLC, request for approval for the relocation of graves. And our counsel, Jennifer Slusser, is going to present that to us.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before you have a request from Triangle Land Partners, LLC, on behalf of Floyd Land Holdings, LLC, to adopt a resolution approving the relocation of 16 graves from the abandoned Parish Holt Cemetery. For your benefit, there is a report contained within your packet that gives a very detailed summary about the investigation that was performed, the historical research, and those sorts of things that were done to identify the deceased next of kin. This property is located on the corner of a 41-acre parcel, which is owned by Floyd Landing Holdings. The property is located on the west side of US 70. And the plans for the 41-acre Floyd Landing residential subdivision show the entire parcel, and all of that is contained within your packet. I also was able to get from the developer's engineer today some additional information that was not contained within your packet, but it is at your seat, with regards to the basis for the request and some photographs that I think may be helpful to you as you're considering that. I want to give you a little bit of legal context about what your responsibility is in this circumstance. We don't do these very often, so I wanted to review that with you quickly. But North Carolina General Statute 65106 allows for the disinterment, removal, and reinterment of graves by the owner of the land on an abandoned cemetery after they have secured your consent. Landowners do not have the unfettered right to remove graves that have been located on their property, and courts are sometimes reluctant to allow the disturbance or removal of bodies once they're buried. However, this statute does provide a means in which this can happen. In making your decision, first of all, you must decide whether or not the cemetery is abandoned. An abandoned cemetery is one that is ceased from maintenance or use by a person with a legal right to the property with the intent of not maintaining the real property in the foreseeable future. A person with a legal right to the property includes descendants of individuals interred, notwithstanding the fact that they don't have a fee or leasehold interest in the property. Second, and I do believe that the abandonment issue is addressed in the report, and there are representatives from the developer that are here that can speak to that if you have questions. Second, you must decide whether or not you consent to the removal. The standard for consent is whether there is some justified reason that is in the public interest. Examples of public interest include the removal by a government agency when the removal is necessary to perform a governmental function. You might recall with regards to the 4042 interchange, there was some removal that occurred in that circumstance. For example, removal by a church to expand facilities and those types of things. But it is in your purview to determine what is the public interest. It is my understanding that a preliminary plat for this subdivision was approved by the town of Smithfield. And though the property sits in the town of Smithfield ETJ, the decision on this issue is to be made by you. And of course, there is a lot of information contained within your packet and the supplement information that you've been provided at your desk. And the developer is here, or his representatives are here, to speak to this issue if you have any specific questions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that I'm able to answer.
I have one, Mr. Chairman. I have some experience with this. A bank client years ago in another county did this as a job, relocating graves, typically through eminent domain with the DOT. In a case like this, where it's, the DOT is requiring a turn lane, and if it required it, it literally was in the footprint, would that be an eminent domain type of thing?
Well, in this situation, the property owner is the one making the request, so it would not be an eminent domain sort of thing in this particular situation. But if you look back at the 4042 situation, interchange and situation, had they not been able to obtain right-of-way from that property owner, then it could have been an eminent domain type situation with regards to to the property owner. So in this situation, perhaps the developer could speak a little more to that, but I don't think that that would be necessarily an issue because these are developer required improvements. And if you look at the pictures that were provided, it's pretty clear that some of this is located within the right-of-way.
Right. I don't take this issue lightly at all. I've had, again, maybe I should say some experience with dealing with family members when this type of thing comes up. But I've looked at that information very closely. I read the entire packet. The last person buried there was in 1940. Looks like to me the last person who visited there was probably 1940 as well. I think the developer or whoever commissioned that study did an outstanding job. I'm surprised I didn't get a letter in the mail asking if I consent to it, because they sent one to everybody else.
It appeared to be a very thorough investigation, and they did, the team did consult with the Johnston County Heritage Center that's referenced in your report to assist with that genealogical research, and I believe, and there's specific detailed information, I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I believe between 52 and 54 descendants were contacted with regards to this. Yeah. And, with regards to that first factor that you're supposed to evaluate whether or not the cemetery is abandoned, I do believe that question is addressed within the report as well, and there's some photographic evidence of the condition of the cemetery within that report.
Any other questions, comments? Do we have I don't know if the applicant's the right word, but.
I think the applicant's representatives are here, if you have specific questions.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, do we have any other questions that we need to?
One thing to clarify, I noticed in that report, it mentioned these graves would be reinterred at a local public cemetery, a perpetual care cemetery, and all that's smoothed out and squared away as far as ability.
And I didn't, so if you would state your name and.
I'm Olivia Heckendorf. I'm the architectural historian who authored the report. So Sunset Cemetery, I was in contact with them right when the report started, and I asked, do you take reinterments? They said yes, and they gave us the price right away. So they are open and available to take the reinterments.
Good, good. Just for the public's information, they would be relocated graves from this abandoned cemetery into a perpetual care local cemetery.
All right. No other questions? Thank you very much. All right, gentlemen, what are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
When I first looked at this issue, I was skeptical, but after I got looking at it, they've done a good job, and I totally agree with this. This ought to be done.
I was of the same notion. I was absolutely not. And after hearing the presentation and reading through the packet, I think they'll go from a situation of neglect to a situation where they'll actually be cared for. That's right.
If anybody wants to visit the graves, they can now
Yes.
get to it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, we've had our motion, second, and discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
Aye.
There we go. So we know where that went this
You
time.
got it.
Yeah, so, all right, motion passes unanimously. All right, next up, we have an update from Alliance CEO Rob Robinson. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Again, Rob Robinson, I'm the CEO with Alliance Health. First off, I'd like to thank Commissioner Godwin for volunteering to join our board. His insights and participation have been invaluable, so thank you for having us. So I'm just going to give a brief update on some organizational system things that are happening. In terms of specific services for Johnston, I couldn't get our dashboard in time for this meeting, but within the week you'll see our dashboard, and that'll have information specific to Johnston County about services being delivered. So just a reminder, Alliance Health, we are the LME MCO serving Wake, Johnston, Cumberland, Mecklenburg, and Orange counties. The last time I was here, we had 4 counties. We now have 6. December 1st, we took on responsibility for care in Mecklenburg and Orange County. We are an LME MCO. The LME stands for Local Management Entity, and that is about managing services for people who are uninsured or underinsured. MCO stands for Managed Care Organization. That's about managing services for people with Medicaid. So across our 6 counties, we're responsible for about 450,000 people who are in need of services. We are not a service provider. We are a managed care company. We contract with over 7,000 providers who actually deliver mental health, substance use, and intellectual and developmental disability services. Next slide, please, Jeff. All right. So one update I want to give you is about a change that's happening within North Carolina with the Medicaid system. This is the largest change in health care in the history of the state. It's really about bringing managed care to North Carolina. Most of the country, well over 40, about 40 states have already gone to managed care. The state is in the midst of that change now. There are 2 types of plans, health plans that are going to be in North Carolina. One is the standard plans. Those are your 5 commercial managed care companies. They went live last year. They're responsible for people with behavioral health, mild behavioral health issues, the physical health, and pharmacy services for people with Medicaid. Most of the people in Medicaid are within the standard plans. The other one of interest to us is the behavioral health Taylor plan. We'll be responsible for people with severe mental health, substance use disorders, and everyone with intellectual and developmental disability. The big change for us is that we're also responsible for the physical health and pharmacy management for that group. That is the big change for us. one of the things I want to talk about, all right, so the numbers served in Johnston County, I can tell you that. This slide just depicts that the number of people that we're responsible for in Johnston has decreased, and that is due to the fact that the standard plans have taken over responsibility for people with mild and people that do not need behavioral health or substance use services, right? So moving forward, Alliance in this catchment area will be responsible for essentially the people with the greatest needs in your community with Medicaid who are uninsured. The responsibility for serving the uninsured has not changed. That is probably our biggest challenge. Medicaid has a more robust benefit package. We serve the uninsured with the limited funding that we have. We've done okay. Not going to get into the politics of it, but Medicaid expansion will favor this group tremendously if we can get that passed. Next slide, please. So let me talk about a priority area for us. One is serving kids involved in the foster care system. We have, while we successfully serve people in foster care, hundreds, thousands every year in the system, there are challenges serving people, kids and families with severe and complex issues. This issue is particularly related to provider capacity and workforce issues. We've had 115 beds closed in our catchment area when we're the fastest growing region in the state. Closing 115 beds has been a challenge. COVID has exacerbated that issue. The state has put forth a plan to implement a statewide foster care plan. It's called the Child and Family Specialty Plan. Just quite frank with you, we are not in support of that plan. I understand why the state did it. We think these folks are best served under the LME MCOs. We've been serving these folks for years. We've got an infrastructure in place, and we've got a plan to better serve that group. Next slide, please. I just want to talk briefly about some of the things that we're doing to help better serve this population. Internally, develop a care management team responsible for coordinating care. Their sole job is making sure kids in foster care get the services that they need. We also developed a team of folks who are responsible for building out a system, making sure there's a cooperative and collaborative relationship with each of our DSSs in each of our 6 counties. On the service side, we've invested tens of millions of dollars in programming and services to better serve this group. We are in the midst of implementing that plan, and when we get complete, we think this will be much better off for the people that we serve. The other 6 LME MCOs, you may have heard the issues with Cardinal. They are no longer part of the system. They are, with them going away, there are 6 LME MCOs across the state. The 6 LME MCOs are working together to standardize and improve services for this group. So that's my update. Again, specific information about services in Johnston should be coming out in the next week or so. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Robinson?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Rob does an outstanding job. He's got a lot of leadership, and I think the fact that Mecklenburg and Orange County chose to align themselves with Alliance demonstrates that. I wanted to ask you about I don't know if you know these numbers from a pro rata basis, population-wise. How are the services here compared to other counties? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'll try not to make this answer too complicated.
Yeah.
We have network adequacy standards. They're different for Medicaid, for uninsured. It's like you have a provider, 30 minutes, so many providers for each service, 30 minutes or 30 miles. In Johnston County, we, for the most part, meet those services. We're always evaluating whether we need more. There's a couple of services coming online. There's a group home that we're going to open up for kids in the foster care. That's coming online here shortly. We've got a child crisis facility that's coming online that's just over the border in Fuquay. They'll be available for Johnston kids. So I will, when we give the update, I'll be sure to include that in it. But you're okay. Everything can always be better, but you're okay. You're meeting the standard.
One other quick question. You have an office here. Is your space adequate? Are you okay?
Yeah, the space has been great. I want to thank the county manager for the space and all of you. It is connected. What's important to us is to be connected and tied to other helping agencies. So it is, it's working out just fine.
Great. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Brazel?
Hello, Rob. Good
Hi,
to see you
Commissioner
again.
Braswell, good to see you.
Talk to me a minute about adolescent care in regards to mental health. I've been working with some Medicaid clients of adolescents, and there seems to be a point where there's not really much service in Johnston County. And the only service they have is to go to the emergency room at the hospital, and then they're not prepared to deal with them. And so they put them in a holding room, for some of them as many as 3 or 4 or 5, 6 days before they can find placement for them and for adolescents. So why do we have that gap here in Johnston County?
It's a good question. I don't think that gap is specific to Johnston County. Services for adolescents with very high needs and severe needs, there is a little bit of a shortfall in it. I'm going to have to get back to you on specific services that are available in Johnston County, but we're finding there's too many kids. Small number, but it's an impactful number of kids that have to go to ED waiting for services. But I'll get back to you ASAP with what services are available for kids with addiction.
Especially these cases that were actually failed suicide attempts by 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And with the time and the place that we're in social media now, with the social media bullying, I'd really like to find some resources that would help in the adolescent care, Rob.
I will follow up on that for you, absolutely, sir. We've
Thank you,
seen
sir.
a suicide increase across the state and across the country, particularly with adolescents, for the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Robinson, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming,
Thank you,
Rob.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have our Director of Public Utilities, Chandra Farmer, to talk with us about design build project delivery for the Timothy G. Broome Water Treatment Plant.
Yes, the North Carolina general statutes require a governmental entity to establish in writing criteria for determining circumstances under which a design build delivery method is used for a project. And we are proposing use of the design build project delivery method for the Timothy G. Broome Water Treatment Plant 14 to 18 million gallon a day expansion project. And I would like to briefly go through the 6 criteria that the statute requires us to evaluate, do a quick evaluation of those criteria and apply those to the project. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions as I go. First criteria requires us to define the project requirements prior to issuing the request for qualifications. The county will do this. We will thoroughly define the project before we issue the RFQ. The project definition will include location, objectives, scope of work, budget, and schedule. And as we apply this criteria to the specific project we're discussing today, it has been defined so we can identify each of these components and include that in the request for qualification. These items have actually already been developed as we submitted a project definition to DEQ when we submitted a funding application. The second statute criteria is time constraints for delivery of the project. Staff proposes that the time constraints for delivery of the project shall be such that either the traditional design bid build project delivery methods not capable of meeting the schedule demands, or the delivery of the project using the traditional design bid build project delivery method cannot be accomplished with time constraints that are associated with funding that we may have for a project. And how we apply this criteria to this particular project is that this project's necessary in order to meet our peak day projected demands for the summer of 2025. This is based on very recently updated demand projections. And in order to meet this intense schedule, we recommend the project, design build project delivery method in order to meet that quick schedule. The third criteria in the statute is the ability to ensure that a quality project can be delivered. We propose to deliver a quality project. We ensure that through one or more of the following: hiring an owner's representative to perform independent inspection and oversight that is familiar with design, build, delivery. Require the project design build team to furnish third-party inspections and inspections performed by Johnston County staff. And how we apply that to this specific project is that we will actually use a combination of all of those. We already have a consultant on board for project management and delivery method evaluation. They would continue to serve as an owner's agent for the county. We will also require stringent inspections, third-party inspections during the project, and we'll utilize county staff that are experienced in contract management and construction management to ensure this quality project delivery. The fourth method required by statute is the capability of the county to manage and oversee the project. The criteria we recommend is that we would do this with dedication of a project management team comprised of the internal county staff and through hiring an owner's representative to provide this project oversight. Again, that's very similar to the method I just discussed to ensure we get a quality project. We would retain a consultant for the project, an owner's advisor for the project, and utilize our experienced internal staff. Fifth criteria required by the statute is good faith efforts to comply with the statute and recruit and select small business entities. We would do this by soliciting, recruiting, and selecting small business entities utilizing applicable law, the county's existing minority and small business participation outreach policy. We would meet any funding source requirements associated with this, and we will require advertise the RFQ in multiple publications to outreach these particular businesses. The sixth criteria that we would use to evaluate per the statute is this requires us to compare the advantages and disadvantages of a design-build project delivery method to show an overall advantage for using other traditional delivery methods. So we would compare design-build delivery to separate prime bidding, which is design, bid, build, and construction at risk, construction manager at risk method. The design build project delivery allows for, when we look at the advantages of that, it allows for a shorter time frame as design and construction activities can overlap. When you start looking at separate prime bidding, you have to complete a project design, then you can move to the next step of bidding and construction. You don't get to overlap those phases. The other advantage, which of course that's the reduced time frame, the advantage of looking at design build over the construction management at risk is that we have a cohesive team that forms in the beginning. The designer and the contractor, the construction contractor, will be part of the team with the county. When you compare that to the construction management at risk, the county has a separate construction manager that they kind of force into that relationship, or I shouldn't say the county, but the owner of a project forces another party into that relationship. Sometimes that can lead to a less cohesive team and more disagreement than your design, build, delivery method when it's more of a market-driven partnership early on. Again, with these criteria, as we evaluate them with each type of project delivery method, we believe that the design build project delivery is a clear advantage to the county for this project. Again, due to essentially the shorter project completion time and the greater cost certainty that we would also have during the design phase of the project. We recommend the board approve the establishment of these criteria for determining circumstances under which the design build method is appropriate for the Timothy G. Broome Water Treatment Plant 14 to 18 million gallon a day expansion project, and authorize the use of the design build project delivery method for this project.
I have a question about one of the earlier criteria that having to do with the time frame goal of 2025, I believe. Is that based on normal construction activities, or does it take into consideration the supply chain aberration we're living in right now?
It's based on normal construction activities.
Okay,
of course, as we built our project schedule, we are trying to take into account those potential disruptions we could have.
Right. That's all I have.
All right, any other questions? So I had one. So what is the schedule after for the RFQ? Do we have a rough schedule for the RFQ being issued and when we expect the SOQs to come back in?
Right. We would plan to have an interest meeting, invite contractors and engineers the end of June, issue the RFQ in early July, and require the statement of qualifications to be in early August so that we could start going through those and hopefully have, at least have it narrowed down to interview firms before the end of August.
Wow, so it's pretty aggressive.
It is an
schedule, so-
aggressive schedule, but this is a project that's critical for us to continue moving forward.
Absolutely. All right. Very good. What are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the design build criteria that's been outlined and authorize the use of the design build project.
I hear a second.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Aye.
say no. All right, we figured this out, so motion passes unanimously. Ms. Farmer, you're here to talk to us now about residential septage disposal
Yes.
temporary policy. So.
Yes. The county currently allows authorized septage haulers to dispose of residential septage waste that's received and collected in Johnston County, to dispose of that at our facilities at 680 County Home Road. This is what we refer to as our biosolids dewatering facilities. And when the septage haulers come in, the waste is weighed at the landfill. Solid waste staff weighs it at the landfill scales, and then they deliver the waste to the public utility facilities there on County Home Road. The biosolids facility, though, is under upgrade along with our 210 wastewater treatment plant. We have a lot of construction going on there. We're concerned about safety and maintaining continuous operations. And I don't believe that we can really safely accommodate these trucks coming in on a daily basis there at the biosolids facility. Therefore, we would like to temporarily modify our procedure for receiving the residential septage waste. We propose that haulers would still go to the landfill to be weighed. Then they would deliver the waste to the county's wastewater treatment plant for the final disposal. Now, we do acknowledge that, this is going to be a little more inconvenient for haulers, and we had proposed a rate increase for 22-23 fiscal year. Therefore, we would propose that we postpone that rate increase for disposal of the sludge until such time that we can get back to normal operations. We anticipate this taking approximately 12 months while we would operate in this temporary method.
The physical facilities at our wastewater treatment would accommodate the trucks.
Yes, we used to accommodate trucks there. That's where we used to receive trucks until we constructed the biosolids facility, so we can certainly take those there.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion we approve these changes on a temporary basis as she's requested.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I do have one quick question, Mr. Chairman, in the way of discussion. Have we had feedback from the haulers?
I've not received feedback from the haulers yet. We're going to start our notification process tomorrow as
Okay.
they start coming through the scales.
Right. It does make sense to get it approved first.
Yeah. All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Motion passes. All right. Next up, we have manager reports and comments. Mr. Hazard.
Good evening, board members. I have just a couple things. I'd like to mention one, and Ms. Slusser's, I think, going to discuss the lease, but we just have a budget amendment from the sheriff, some additional revenue, and he's asking the board to approve that to those expenditure line items. I think you have a copy of this, right?
We do.
So would request approval.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the sheriff's office budget revision, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, motion carries. All right. Mr.
Thank you.
Hester,
Thank you
next
very
item.
much.
Ms. Slusser, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been talking with you for some time about needing to lease some space for probation and parole. As you know, that space is currently with the town of Clayton, and that lease is coming to an end, and they need that space. So we are statutorily required to provide this space, and so we have identified some space that we think would work at the Pine Needles Shopping Center, Brightleaf Boulevard, in Smithfield. I sent you earlier today a draft lease for that space. The lease proposed is $12 a foot. It's about 3,333 square feet. And we're proposing a 2-year lease term with a right to renew for an additional 1-year term at the same lease rate. The landlord will be responsible for taxes, maintenance, insurance, all of those sorts of things. The county wouldn't need to do some minor upfit to the property to, run data lines, that sort of thing, to make it appropriate for office space. But that is what we would like for you to consider, and if this is acceptable to the board, I would ask that you authorize me and the county manager to move forward with that lease, get it executed, and get that upfit in place. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and Mr. Clifton is here as well.
Any questions?
From a practical standpoint, the relocation from where it is to where you're going, how does it impact the people who use it?
Practically speaking, it really won't.
Okay.
And frankly, this location is a really good location for both the employees that work out of that space and the citizens that it serves.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the lease agreement for this space.
Now we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I second it. Does that include empowering them to sign whatever they need to do?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
You said she had to leave early. Maybe she did.
No, I don't think she did. All right, any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank
So I
you.
guess she counts as a yes vote since she's still
That's correct.
here, so. All right, anything else, Mr. Hester? All right, now's the time for board reports and comments, and Mr. Smith, since I started with you, no report. Mr. Brazel?
No.
No, sir. Thank you.
Rob Robinson from Alliance came and gave us an update tonight, and I appreciate him doing that. We have 2 representatives on that board, and it's quite an involved board. We meet once a month without fail, first Thursday. But I just want to recognize Lee Jackson, a former commissioner and local CPA. He's a very effective member. He's part of their finance committee, and he does an outstanding job, represents Johnston County very well, and I just want to shout out to Lee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jackson and Commissioner Braswell. So in the, I guess, for lack of brevity, Commissioner Stevens, did you have anything? I'm sorry.
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay, I had 4 things, and I'll be quick with, we've had some internal discussions amongst the board about modifying our budget process for next year to move it up just a little bit and start the process earlier. So hopefully that will lead to a little bit smoother process, and I think Mr. Hester and staff will work on that for us, so we may begin those discussions as early as March this year, or next year. So just that's the first thing. The other thing is we've talked about getting a set of rules for our meetings, and I'll ask our attorney if she would look at that. And I don't know if the meeting in July is quick enough to kind of give us, I think we have 2 options, but whatever our options are, and let us start that process moving forward. The other thing is I've asked Ms. Farmer, we get a monthly reconciliation on our water and sewer, but particularly on the sewer, now that we have towns approving plans, if we could break that, and I know in our policy we have some set aside and allocated for towns, and I probably should use the word capacity, but rather than allocation. But if we could take a look and get that added to our list so that we know what each town has as we're moving forward. I know we have a new plant coming online in 2024, but I want to make sure we're not, I don't want to say giving it away, because we're not giving it away, but make sure that we understand what's happening with our sewer capacity. And the final thing is, I'll just add my wish list. We've got CAMPO, the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, is working on a southeast area study to look at transportation in Johnston County, and this year they will be studying pretty much 295. I think Pine Level will be in there, and I think maybe a couple other locations east of 95. But what I would like for us to do is look at the rest of the county and update our transportation plan. Hadn't been done in a while, and let's take a look at that so that we can be prepared as more development comes. We can have an updated transportation plan so that developers will know and we will know what street sections are going to look like, as well as be eligible for funds, locally administered projects from Campo, so we can start looking at some funding, not only for roads, greenways, the whole transportation thing. So that's something for this board to consider as we move forward, or I'd like for us to consider as we move forward. So, Commissioner Godwin.
Your comments have stimulated some response. I hope as we develop the rules for our meetings, we've been recognized repeatedly in the local press for being citizen-friendly as far as allowing input and response, and I hope we don't lose that as we structure our meetings. So.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I know there's some places that have public comment at the end,
yeah,
and I kind of like the way we do things there. So if there's not any other comments, I will look for a motion to go into closed session.
I move the board go into closed session for purpose of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privileges pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, and to establish or instruct staff concerning negotiations, the price and terms of a contract concerning the acquisition of real property pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A5.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion to go into closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will go into closed session as soon as we get the room.